Hi everyone, it's Becky here. Welcome to another new video on my YouTube channel. And today I'm taking you all to Gastown around the water area in downtown Vancouver. First time seeing a cruise ship in the harbor after 2 years of the pandemic, and here the Gastown steam clock. A lot of people, the tourists, are surrounding it, taking pictures, and some more heritage buildings here on Water Street. Here I am at Timber Train Coffee Roasters, my first time visiting this cafe. It looks pretty inviting. And now I'm ready to go in. There's a little step here. Very old vintage door. And here is the inside of the cafe. It's a very small but cozy little space. So I ordered a cup of latte, very cute little floral on it, and one cheese and ham croissant and a scone. So because the weather has been so cold this spring and early summer here in Vancouver with lots of overcast and rainy days, it's very hard for me to decide to sit outside and do an outdoor urban sketching. So sitting inside this warm cafe is a great idea. Here is my current watercolor sketchbook. I just started working on it over the past week. First 2 pages, and flipping to the next blank page, I'm ready to start sketching my cup of latte. I really like the design of the cup. The rim of the cup, using a lot of little broken lines and tiny little circles to draw the bubbles around the rim, and this cute little fern floral in the middle and a little bit of curvy texture around the surface, drawing a little platform for it. So that was a quick 2-minute drawing in real life. And now I'm ready to paint watercolors. So just wetting the surface of the latte and the body part of the cup with clear water so the paint can spread out very easily. Adding a little bit of medium yellow. For the surface of the coffee is mix of medium yellow and a little bit of orange to show the golden liquid of coffee in between the cream. So that's for the first layer, very light and gentle. But around the rim of the coffee, it's a darker brown orange tone. So I just mix in a little bit burnt sienna into orange. And leaving lots of the middle parts just bright from the first layer. And the very edge is kind of a raw umber color, just to give the coffee more contrast. And add a little bit of tiny little details with the tip of the brush. Just wetting the body part of the cup a little bit more. Is ceramic, I think it's handmade. Mix of ultramarine blue and royal purple to paint this kind of grayish tone. I like to mix my own grays with blues and purples. Yeah, and adding a little bit of shade for the rim too. Painting very loosely because this handcrafted ceramic cup, the surface color and the curve is a little uneven. Add a little bit of shade around the left side with more intense mix of blue and purple and less water, and just let the wet into wet technique do the work. Quickly wetting the bottom area with water and put on the shade very lightly, a little bit darker around the very bottom. It's a very soft little shadow. Yeah. So this is a pretty good warm-up sketch before I attempt doing the urban landscape outside. Here's the look of my finished coffee sketch. It took me about 6 minutes to draw and paint. And this butter and ham croissant is actually pretty good. Just gonna finish eating it before starting the urban sketch. Okay, so before I put line work on paper, I like to kind of visualize the size and placement with hand gestures, forming a mental image on a white space first. I don't use a pencil to do any rough sketches or idea sketches before, just direct ink drawing in a very spontaneous way. Now I just began with the little pink building in the corner of the street on the other side, connecting a lamp beside it, and this foreground building, the first one on the left. And keep adding some more traffic signs, street signs, poles, seeing them in very simple shapes like horizontal or vertical rectangles. Adding the rooftop detail for this little pink building. This is the Victorian style kind of building with a lot of cute little details underneath the roof. Another traffic sign here. Beginning to add some medium shapes for the building, like the window frames. And keep adding other details like the 2 flags hanging on the side of the street lamp. And some more window frames overlapping behind these signs for the little pink building on the other side, the layers of eaves, and these little umbrellas. And there's actually a little tree overlapping. Adding some little people because they're so far away, they look so small. Just simplify them into super basic geometric body shapes. And adding the front windows and doors for the first floor of the building, adding some even smaller shapes, the pieces of glasses for the windows. Yeah, a lot of details and patience is needed here to render these details. And I'm also coloring in the glass with black ink so the building looks, it has more density. And one trick to relax when doing a very complicated urban scenery like this is to simplify and simplify. Now I'm drawing these buildings in a far background. As you can see, just simplify them into super simple cubes without any details like the windows or railings. Just leave that blank for the viewers to imagine. Now I want to put more attention and details for the buildings in the foreground. Just really paying attention to the angle of the lines on the exterior of the building, following the rule of perspective. These lines are kind of going into a vanishing point on the very left outside the sketchbook page. Adding some more building structures, dividing this huge rectangular shape into smaller rectangles. And adding some more little people on the other side of the street. And keep drawing these very general large shapes for the building. Here's another building in the middle. So all of these lines are slanting down toward the left, trying to meet the vanishing point on the far left outside the sketchbook page. So overall, most buildings are kind of in cube or prism shapes, looking from the side. After the general shapes, I'm starting to add these tiny little details for these Victorian style buildings. Lots of little arcs to frame the windows. And every window is divided into 2, maybe more pieces of glasses. And just shading in these windows with very simple hatching lines to give them a bit of shade. Windows during the daylight, they can look very dark. Adding some accentuations by working some lines into multiple strokes. And this piece of window contains 4 glasses. Yeah, a lot of deep observation skills. Because we're actually looking at this building from the side view. That's why all of these lines are slanting down towards the left. And adding some more cute little arcs and window frames, some accentuations around the side of the frames, using hatching to shade in the windows. So again, when we're drawing with fine liner pens, there are different ways to make the lines into a variety of different shades, using hatching and accentuation for certain parts with multiple strokes. Finishing the base of the lamp and adding some little shop signs around the base. Adding another person just to give the building more proportion Now I'm starting to draw this guy sitting outside on the bench. It's a really nice foreground element to have, a bit of juxtaposition. And another lady very happily walking by. Drawing very quickly, bit from my memory and impression rather than copying what I see, because that lady just walked away in 3 seconds. And the slanting line of the sidewalk, nice and brave. Keep adding some more little details for the first floor of the building, the entrance, and a lot of big and small shapes of rectangles, some hatching to give it more density. Okay, so that's it for the first big building. Now I'm starting to work on this tiny cute building in the middle. Again, the structure is very similar. There's actually a street lamp in front of it, just drawing that very quickly. Those light bulbs and the pole with solid black line. Dividing that 3 vertical parts into 3 windows. Yeah, and then the window frames, shading in with very simple hatching again. Yeah, and keep adding the base of the lamp and the base of this little building, another slanting line. So we don't really need to know where the vanishing point is, but just to be aware of the angles of these slanting lines. So as you can see, the sidewalk line is going up, but the rooftop line is going down to the left. So I think my eye level is around the top part of the lady's head. So all the slanting lines above my eye level is sinking down towards the left. And all of the slanting lines, such as the sidewalk line, is below my eye level, is going down towards the right. So the angle is changing above and below the eye level. And now I'm adding these details for the building on the very right. Yeah, very similar window structures and division of different parts. And the shop front sign. And adding tiny details inside those glasses, like the clothing models. And now I'm seeing, and I feel like the middle side of this image is a little empty. So I decided to draw this car parked by the sidewalk, starting with the contour outline, the wheels, and adding these windows and lights for the car. And underneath the car, there's a deep patch of shadow. And that's it. Here is the look of my finished line work. Okay, so now it's time to paint watercolors to make this heritage street corner come alive. So I'm just wetting the sky area first with clear water, and also the street, because it's an overcast day, the sky and the street are having very similar colors, like a grayish tone. And I'm putting a little bit of diluted medium yellow to show the sunshine coming through the thick clouds, and a bit of leftover mix of ultramarine blue and royal purple for the dark clouds above the sunshine color. And for the first layer of the street, I'm laying a very diluted mix of raw umber with a little bit of yellow ochre, because this is a very old street that contains this kind of dusty color. As for the first layer, yeah, a very even wash. And for these buildings in the distance, they are of red bricks. So it's a mix of red and a little bit brown or burnt sienna. It's laying the color very loosely. It's okay to leave a bit of gaps to show the looseness, to give them buildings more of a lively look. And also, the more or less water that you mix into the same red-brown color, the tone is going to be different. And that's going to make your painting a bit more interesting. Okay, so the first layer of this pink building is a diluted quinacridone magenta. So when I'm seeing the colors in front of me, I'm very sensitive of how much water that I should be adding to my paint, or how much paint pigment I should have in the water. So yeah, this one is a very, very light tint of magenta. And same for this green building in the middle. is kind of a color of viridian green mixed in with a little bit of yellow ochre. Okay, so I very rarely just use the colors directly from the palette. I do mix it with a tiny bit of another color or two other colors, so the color is very unique. And adding this bit of diluted and less diluted brown or burnt sienna. So when painting brick buildings, we don't have to be even because every single brick is having a slightly different tone of red-brown. And adding another quick layer of slightly more intense green on top of the first layer of more watery green, dabbing on some bright medium yellow to add more life and cheerfulness to these buildings. And mix of medium yellow ochre, and a tiny bit of brown for the building in the middle. Raw umber, very much diluted, for the building on the right side. And for the bottom of these three buildings, it's painted with black paint. So I very rarely use the black in my watercolor palette, and instead I like to mix my own black with ultramarine blue, royal purple, and a little bit of dark green. And same for the street, I'm adding a second layer and a third layer wet into wet. So it's okay to use these muddy colors to show the aged exterior of buildings and streets. And same for the bottom of the little pink building. Yeah, just add a little more, slightly more intense pink for the second layer. And for the first floor, very loosely adding these dark shades of grays, actually bluish gray. And same for these glasses inside the window frames. And adding a new layer of slightly more intense green for the second layer of this green building. As you can see, when I'm adding this more intense green, I didn't cover every single space from the first layer. So there's a bit of layering happening. It just makes the everything that we paint looking more dynamic and less flat. Adding a little bit more details, those dark grays for the first floor of these buildings, and also more intense color for the rooftops and the windows. A little bit shade underneath the roof, and also the layers of eaves here and there. Quickly painting these the windows for the buildings in the distance using very simple blurry shapes. Things in the distance, it doesn't have to be as looking detailed as the ones in the foreground. Yeah, and quickly painting the windows for the pink building as well. Slight bit of light grays here and there, and this is a very colorful building in the distance. So if you've been to downtown Vancouver, or if you've been living in Vancouver for many years, you probably are very familiar with that building on the upper right. Yeah, it's located in Chinatown or downtown Vancouver, and there's no need to add so much details for it. As you can see, I'm just using these dots to show the windows of it with that brown and bright yellow color and bits of windows. You can tell what building that is if you're familiar with Vancouver. And adding final bit of shades around the sidewalk and painting this car with an interesting color of blue and purple. Yeah, last bit of shade for the bottom and top part of these buildings was light gray, the leftover color in my watercolor palette, just a bit here and there, almost invisible brushstrokes. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'm gonna call it done. Here is the look of my finished sketch. It took me about an hour and 10 minutes. A very relaxing time sitting in a cafe, sipping my coffee and contemplating the view outside the window. So thank you so much for watching my video. If you like my video, please click like and leave me a comment below. Subscribe to my channel for weekly updates. And I will see you again very soon next time. Have a great day, everyone.